Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and welcome to Fantasy Football Talk with the Boss and the Hustler. Hustler, welcome to the show.
What up? What's going down, everybody?
A lot is going down, and we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about tight ends, the ones that play football, not the ones we see in the street. And we're going to talk about defensive players, not teams, players, actual players that you will draft during this fantasy football season that you should have on your team. Right? Oh, before we get started, let's talk about big news today. Yesterday, Deshaun Watson got his sentence. It was a kind of weird thing. It was like a judge decided what his sentence would be. 6 games, Hustler. NFL has 3 days to appeal it if they want to make it longer or shorter, but they probably, if they appeal it, it's going to be longer. What's your opinion? Do you think it's fair? People have both sides are both chapping away on Twitter all over the place. What's your opinion on 6 games for Watson?
Well, first off, I just have to say, any kind of sexual abuse, is just wrong. And I know I may get a lot of heat for what I think about this, but I think the 6 games is fair because he didn't get brought up on any criminal charges. I mean, multiple judges, different courts, they wouldn't even hear this case. So, I mean, that's what it all comes down to. He violated things that did not exist in the NFL's personal conduct policy. There will be things added now, because of him and because of the kind of things that he did. I know a lot of people think that it's unfair compared to what Ridley did, but Ridley broke a written rule. It was very black and white, with what he did. A lot of gray areas with what Deshaun Watson did, and the NFL was smart for bringing in an independent judge, on this who both parties agreed on. So they wouldn't be the ones to, I don't know, get a little bit crazy or underestimate, everything. So I think it was fair. I know a lot of people don't, but he's not a criminal. He's just a sicko.
I agree. Calvin Ridley, just so everybody knows, $1,500 he wagered on the website. I'm not going to plug it, so I'm not going to say the website. But he bet on his team, basically. That's a big no-no. Everybody knows that. When you sign a contract, everybody has that clause in their contract. It's like you don't bet on sports, basically. So he's gone for the year. Josh Gordon smokes a little weed. He was gone for 25 games. They put him away for smoking weed. And it's it's a little secret I want to tell you, Hustler. A lot of the guys on NFL teams smoke a lot of weed, not a little bit, but a lot. They make you look like a Quaker. I didn't think I would get the word Quaker in this show, but I did. But again, 6 games. What I have to see, which I'm not making to the public, is exactly what happened in these locked rooms.
Right.
Did he expose himself? Did he grab them? What did he do for all this craziness to happen? Was he belligerent? I'm just curious. I didn't see it, so I can't say if it was if it was a harsh or if it was light. I have no idea. The thing I'm happy about the most, Hustler, is it's over with. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of speculating. So he's gone for 6 games. Is he still fantasy worthy? What's your take on Deshaun Watson? Where do you take him in the draft right now? Are you going to draft him? What's your take? Go.
He is going to be fantasy worthy for sure. He's missing 6 games. That is a nice percentage of the season, but he's going to be better than a lot of these trash quarterbacks, that are out there. These guys that people don't want to draft. And Deshaun Watson, he will be drafted in a lot of these leagues. There may be people who drop him, because I don't know, maybe they just lose the first 5 games or something because, their team sucks. But I feel like he's going to be drafted in a lot of these leagues, and it might be, if it's a super flex league, maybe it's somewhere in the 7th, 8th, 9th round. If it is a single QB league, he's probably getting drafted in double-digit rounds.
I agree. When he played for Houston back in the day, it's back in the day. It's been so long. He was a guy to be reckoned with. He wasn't a guy that was average. He was top tier, and I don't say that to many players. There's only a few top tier guys. He was a top tier quarterback.
Yeah.
He was that good. So I agree with you. I think he'll be drafted. I took him in a few best ball things. I took him in as my 3rd quarterback just because, God forbid, he has some huge games, later in the year. I'm there. I got him.
He only has 4 seasons in the NFL, and he's been a top 10 fantasy QB 3 seasons.
It's not too bad, not too shabby. Those are Ross the Boss numbers. I like that a lot. And plus, in Cleveland, it's going to be a great place. A, they have a great running game. B, he has a great offensive line. And C, he'll find a way to win in Cleveland. I'm excited to watch him play, and he's a great player. I know there's people that are going to like be against him till they die, or he's out of the league, whatever comes first. So, I mean, you can't change those people's opinion. So I'm not here to change anybody's opinion. What I do want to say is this. I don't know the facts. Hustler doesn't know the facts. So we can't really comment if it was fair or not. I have no idea. So I have no idea. But talking about something I do have an idea about is Mr. Deebo Samuel, the wide receiver / running back. And he's going to play running back again this year, folks. They already said it. You know, Shanahan said it. So he signed a huge deal. He's happy now. He's in camp. What's your opinion on Deebo? Where do you have him fantasy-wise with Trey Lance as his quarterback? What's your whole opinion about the situation?
First off, shout out to Antonio. What up, dude? So Deebo, yeah, he is going to get used as an RB and a wide receiver. They were smart enough to make sure that there was clauses in his contract, like bonuses, for certain types of like rushing statistics and things like that. And yeah, I mean, he's a top 10 wide receiver, like for sure. Like, I don't think he's outside of the top 10 in anybody's wide receiver ranks, definitely not mine. And last week we did wide receivers. I had him ranked number 9 in my ranks, and I think I'm moving him up just a couple spots.
Moving on up to the big time. Now, the reason you're doing that is because his coach came out and said he's going to get some reps at running back. Is that the reason he's moving up, or just because he signed the big deal?
Well, because he signed the big deal, because in the clause he has bonuses, for the rushing statistics. That's all he wants, is to be compensated for the work that he's doing. He doesn't want to be paid, like a running back when he's being a running back and a wide receiver. It's the same argument that Le'Veon Bell, had, because Le'Veon Bell was leading his team damn near, in receptions and like rushing yards. And Deebo, I mean, all the touchdowns he had, he was the best run, almost the best runner, because Elijah Mitchell was pretty good, last year. But yeah, it's all about the money. Got to follow the money. Deebo is going to be really happy going into camp. And now that he's going to make more money for being a rusher, I think he's going to want that ball more as a rusher.
I think you're 100% right. I think his stock has moved up. And if I had to pick one receiver that's like a double threat, it's him. And he moved up. He's in the top 5 right now for me. I know he was your 9. I think I had him at 7. But now he's in top 5 just because of the running back aspect. If he can get 10 to 12 handoffs a game and maybe get a goal line touchdown, you know how valuable it is, Hustler? You know how valuable that is?
To the moon.
To the moon. So something I'm excited about. I know you hate talking about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Hard Knocks coming back August 9th. It's the Detroit Lions. For some reason, I thought it was the Colts. Did they switch on us last minute or what? I don't know what happened. But it's the Detroit Lions. I saw the promo trailer for it. I'm excited. I was being more excited. I got to pick actually back the Colts, but now the Lions. I mean, it should be interesting. They do have some personalities on that team. You told me you'll watch because I want to talk about it on air.
Yeah.
So it premieres next week. I'm excited. I don't know if you follow this, but there's been a lot of like fights going on in camp. Like Metcalf got in a big fight with some defenseman guy. I mean, in the whole book.
Brandon Ayuk and Fred Warner were about to throw blows out there.
I mean, what is going on in these camps? Why are these players going after each other with their own teammates? What is going on, Hustler?
It's that football mode, like that's what it is. Like they're out there to kill everybody, and they're just going hard. I mean, a lot of guys are fighting for positions. Guys like Brandon Ayuk, who everyone thinks is the number 1 wide receiver last year, all of a sudden Deebo gets the big payday. Brandon Ayuk is probably like, oh, where's my payday? And I mean, who knows if he is? I'm just speculating, but everybody just has a lot of testosterone flying around, and nobody wants to feel like they're getting punked out there.
A lot of stuff's going on. It's just going to, and it makes news because there's nothing else to talk about in NFL. If a player throws a blow, oh, it's news. We got to talk about it. It's not really news. I've been doing it ever since training camp ever opened. Something I really talk about. Then we'll talk about tight ends and your rankings. I can't wait because I'm a Bengal fan. 28,000 people showed up to opening training camp in Cincinnati. Well, it's in Wilmington. It's outside of Cincinnati, but 28,000 people showed up. And and for the Reds opening weekend, when the Reds opened up, they didn't even have come close to 28,000 people combined. So it just shows you how people are starving for these camps. And we're lucky enough in California. We have in Oxnard, which is only 45 minutes away. We have the Dallas Cowboys that has camp, and I go once in a while, and it's a party. I mean, people are there. The Cowboy fans are going crazy. People are drinking. They're laughing. They're having players are signing autographs. It's a great time.
That's what it's all about.
It's all
Everyone needs
about
to
it.
experience that kind of stuff.
And I maybe you can meet me in Oxnard. We'll I know you're not a Cowboy guy, but they do put a good training camp on in Oxnard. It's a fun time, and I suggest anybody who's a football fan would have a great time going. Let's talk about tight ends. I know it's a subject that you in your leagues you basically have a flex position for tight ends. So in your league, basically you only draft about 5 to 6 tight ends, if I had to guess. Maybe 7.
No, there's still going to be more tight ends drafted than that. It's just maybe there's only 5 or 6 tight ends that are starting, in a week. But a lot of times because of the tight end premium, you're going to be starting a few tight ends versus like some of these wide receiver 4s, these RB, these flex RB guys.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying in your 12 team league, just thinking offhand, I think about 6 or 7 tight ends would start. And the rest would be on the bench, but that's what I was trying to say. So let's talk. It's like an obvious question, but maybe you surprise me, but I'm sure you won't. Who's your number 1 tight end? Go.
Shout out to Sir Bongs a lot. What up, dude? I'm starting off with Travis Kelce. Mark Andrews, he finished as the highest scoring tight end last year, but Travis Kelce, he's just as consistent as they come. If Mark Andrews, declines a little bit on the TDs, it's just going to make it that much easier for Travis Kelce to get back to the number 1 status, and no Tyreek Hill. So there's going to be a whole bunch of extra passes that are going to be going his way. Doesn't matter if people know that he's getting the ball or not. He's way too talented, and you just can't stop him all the time.
So when you're drafting Kelce, what's the highest you would draft him in a draft?
I'd be willing to draft him in the first round. It really just depends on how things are shaping out, because it is tight end premium. So maybe like end of the first round. And in these leagues, the running backs are really, really valuable, but a lot of these leagues, we start 3 wide receivers. So the wide receivers are a little bit more valuable than the running backs because you start more. And like that's what it all comes down to. I feel safe having Travis Kelce versus some of these RBs who I'll be nervous if they're going to get hurt or not early.
No, Kelce, as we know, it's Mahomes' favorite target. It's not a secret, and they even try to double team him. It doesn't work. I know he's a year older, but he says, "Oh, he's a year older. He's getting old, and he doesn't. That doesn't matter. This guy's going to have 100-something receptions." And prediction here, I would say 14 touchdowns. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. He's usually around double digits. So now with Tyreek Hill gone and those 14 touchdown receptions last year, those are going to be vacated. There's going to be a lot to go around for Kelce.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Number 1 red zone target on the team.
It's going to be good. So that's my number 1 too. There's no surprise here. Who's your number 2 tight end? Go.
Mark Andrews. The tight end blanket for Lamar Jackson, and I don't think that goes away. I just like Travis Kelce a little bit more because of the volume. Mark Andrews is usually only playing like 75% of the snaps, and it's because of the I always forget if he has type 1 or type 2 diabetes, but because of that, where he's never going to be like 100% like snap guy.
He has type 2, I believe. It's the lighter version where he doesn't have to really worry about it that much. He just does a shot once a week and he's good, ready to roll. Yeah. So I'm going against you. I'm taking Kyle Pitts. He's in an offense where they have really nothing except a mediocre quarterback, a mediocre receivers, and below average running game. But I think Kyle Pitts will carry the whole offense. He was a rookie last year, and as we know, rookies don't really have great years, especially in the tight end position. It's a very low rated odds that a tight end at a rookie was going to have a huge year. I think Kyle Pitts will pick it up this year. I think he'll have over 1,000 yards, which isn't saying much, but I think he'll have 10 to 12 TD catches. I think for me, I'm taking Kyle Pitts as my number 2 tight end, and I believe you can probably get him in the third round, late, maybe even early 4th round in some of these leagues. That's where I've been drafting him. But I'm predicting Kyle Pitts, big year, big player, can win your league this year. It's one of the players that I'm telling you guys to take now. So who's your number 3?
Well, I'll just play devil's advocate on why I have Kyle Pitts 1 spot lower than Mark Andrews. And really, it's because of the touchdowns. Kyle Pitts still has not scored a touchdown on American soil. And their offense is not going to be any better than it was last year. If anything, it's going to be worse. So I really just don't see him scoring double-digit touchdowns. It's not that he's not talented enough. I don't think the offense is good enough, because last year he was the guy too. He was really the only guy.
He was a rook. Again,
that doesn't matter though. Like, they target him a lot in
tight
the red
ends,
zone, but
tight ends are not good as rookies. The last good tight end rookie was.
I'm not saying he's not going to get better. I'm not saying he's not going to get better, but I'm also saying he ain't Mark Andrews yet. He's not Travis Kelce. That's why I have him at number 3. So we're still just splitting hairs, because he is number 3 on my list.
Number 3. So we talked about Pitts. Number 3 on my list is Andrews. There's nothing else I want to say. I think he'll get receptions. I mean, Lamar Jackson loves him. It's one of his favorite receivers. Hollywood Brown's not there anymore. So again, Bateman's, I think, their number 1 receiver, which isn't saying that much. You can draft Bateman in the 11th round if you want. But I mean, long story short, I think
we going a lot sooner than the 11th round. But yeah,
I was just in one of those best ball things yesterday, and I drafted him in the 10th or 11th round. I think it was the 11th. I'll check. But people forget about him. He's a very forgetful receiver. People don't, especially people that aren't well versed like you and I. I think Andrews will have a big year also. I think with any of these 3 guys, you can't go wrong. But Kelce for sure is the top dog this year. And I think if Kelce rolls, Kansas City rolls, and if you draft him, you have a huge advantage on your opponent, because they don't have a tight end like Kelce. So there you go. That's the reason you draft Kelce compared to some other people. Who's your number 4 tight end?
I got Darren Waller, the baller there. I'm probably not going to be drafting him anywhere, because I'm nervous about him health-wise. He's one of those guys, gets a lot of different injuries. And so I'm personally probably not drafting him there. These rankings are assuming health. So if he stays healthy, I really think he's going to be back to top 4, status again, and probably finish like just behind to Kyle Pitts, if Kyle Pitts can put up some decent touchdown numbers.
Yeah, Waller last year, I don't have him as number 4. I took Kittle, but Waller, he had great games, and then he was invisible for some games. There were some games he didn't get the ball at all, and it drove me crazy as a Waller owner and some of my. So I'm not going to be jumping up and down about Waller this year. I think with the addition to Adams and his getting a lot of attention from the best, he'll be covered by the best cornerback they have, and maybe double teamed even. So Waller should be more open compared to last year, I assume. Hopefully Carr will find him and get him more targets. And like you say, with him, it's a health thing. And I mean, he has great ability. I mean, this guy can catch anything. He has speed. He can block. He can do everything. He's great. I have Kittle as my 4. I know Trey Lance is the quarterback. People are kind of fearful of Trey Lance being the quarterback with the tight end. I don't know why. But Kittle had some huge games last year. Then he was invisible also. Another guy fell. I don't know what happened. But I know he was hurt. He got hurt. Another guy could get, every year he gets hurt, the past 2 years at least. I remember he's in the skybox wearing street clothes, yelling and screaming, and they always show him on TV. But my number 4 is Kittle. But again, I do like Waller a lot too. I have him in a bunch of leagues. Who's your number 5?
Kittle. Yeah, and I mean, both guys, I mean, Waller and Kittle, it's all about the health, with those guys. And if it was still Jimmy, I'd probably have Kittle over Waller. But yeah, the Lance, coming in and us just not really seeing exactly the rapport. That's why I flip-flopped Waller and Kittle. They're both still in the same tier for me.
6.
Schultz. It's crazy how much people are really disrespecting Schultz. I mean, he was the number 3 tight end last year. They lose CD Lamb. It's been a part of the Cowboys' MO to be peppering the tight end, forever. So I don't think his ceiling is as high as Waller or Kittle if they are healthy for the entire season. But he's literally like the next guy for me right after those guys, because his ceiling is there. I just don't see him as like a potential 15, 14, touchdown guy. Maybe he'll crack 1,000 yards, but probably about it.
I agree with you with Cooper leaving. He's a Brown now. And I think CD Lamb is their number 1, which he never was the number 1 ever in Cowboy history, obviously. Schultz, I think, will have a big year. Dak Prescott will stay healthy, hopefully. And if Dak stays healthy, Schultz will have a huge year. He'll be a big target. And if I had Schultz as one of my fantasy guys, I would not blink twice in starting him every week. He's one of these guys you got to start every week. And I did take him in best ball in a bunch of leagues because another guy that 7th, 8th, 9th round guy, people were not drafting him that early. I mean,
Right.
People were looking over him, and that could be one of the problems with Schultz is like no one really talks about him or drafts him that high. And that's a great problem to have because that's when you and I swoop in and take him. Who's your number 7? I think it was 7.
Yep, number 7. I got Dallas Goedert at number 7. Even with AJ Brown coming over, that's just going to mean more single one-on-one coverage, for him. And most of what they do, I mean, it works through the tight end. So I think Dallas Goedert is going to be real awesome to have again this year.
I do not have Goddard. I have Zach Ertz because it hurts. He's in Arizona. As we know, Hopkins is not playing the first 6 games, I believe. So he'll be looking for Ertz a lot longer. I say Ertz. God, do you think it was confusing when he played in the Eagles and was Hurts to Ertz? It was very confusing. So I feel Zach Ertz will have a big year this year. I think he knows the playbook now. Obviously, he was traded. Was it last year? He's traded to the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep.
I believe he'll adapt to it. I think he'll be one of these guys that will probably have 40 to 50 yards a game with a touchdown sprinkled in there once in a while. Yep. So I think Zach Ertz, if you need a tight end and you're not drafting a tight end that early, like the guys we just talked about, I don't think he's a bad replacement, but he's not going to really win you any leagues, but he's not going to lose you any leagues either. So he's one of these average guys. Who's your 8?
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz.
You said about him.
Who's your number 9?
I got Dawson Knox in there. Not really a volume guy, but I'm just listening to some of the stuff. They got that tight end university or whatever that they do every year with like Greg Olsen and Kittle and a couple other people are getting behind it. And they said Dawson Knox was a standout last year. He's standing out this year. And he just needs to stay healthy because he was on fire last year. He gets hurt and then he's just not targeted as much as he was before that. But now with Beasley gone, maybe
I like Knox. I actually have Hunter Henry for the Patriots. I think Hunter's somebody. I remember when he played in for the Chargers, a big target there, big target for Jones in New England. I feel again, if you're drafting Hunter Henry starting on your team, you're not going to win leagues, but you're not going to lose games. But he's a solid tight end, and some leagues he's not even drafted. So there you go. But if you have him on your team, it's a good start. And there's a bunch of other tight ends I wouldn't want to have, but I'd rather have Hunter Henry. Who's your number 10?
At number 10, I got Mike Gesicki. Him and Tua, they really got some rapport together like towards the end of the season, but then Gesicki got hurt. And so everything kind of stopped like right at the end there. But especially with adding a guy like Tyreek Hill, him and Waddle on the same team. That means that a lot of these teams are probably going to be playing the 2 high safety, not to let them get behind them. And then who's going to be the beneficiary? Mike Gesicki with all the underneath work.
Gesicki, I don't have him in my top 10, but I just want to say he's somebody that he'll score a touchdown and you're looking at your team like you don't have him, but you're hoping your opponent doesn't. And for some reason, every year when he scored, my opponent had Mike Gesicki. So it's somebody that, yes, you should draft him. No, you should not draft him early. But if you start him, he's a guy that will get 30, 40, 50 yards and a touchdown more than once. I mean, he'll do that 8, 9, 10 times a year in games. Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy loves to catch the ball. And like you said, having these speed burners on both sides will open up the middle tremendously for the tight end. And I think it's going to benefit a lot having Hill on that team.
Oh yeah.
I like Noah Fant. He was used to be a Bronco. Now he's a Seattle Seahawk. I don't even know who the Seahawk quarterback is. I guess they're going with Geno Smith right now. But when you're going with a quarterback that's not a big arm, Geno Smith or Drew Lock, that both of them their arms are just average at best. So they'll be dumping a lot to the tight end. Noah Fant, no press. I mean, whoever his PR person is should be fired because you never hear about him that much. But huge years. I mean, huge target. great hands. Just guy that shows up to work with his lunchbox. This guy is solid. And again, if you draft him as your backup tight end, if you're in a 10-team league, you can draft him probably as a backup tight end. Not a bad guy to have on your team just in case your tight end goes down. But again, he's another guy that it's not going to be a huge yard gaining guy, but he'll score a touchdown here or there. So tell me about any sleepers you have worth the tough for the tight end position that's worth drafting that you'd say, okay, I kind of messed up. I forgot to take a tight end and it's my turn to draft and I need a tight end. Who's out there that you would take like that for sure would be available in the 12th round?
I got 3 guys who you could just take like all the way at the end, and you kind of just hope for the best either way because you're just putting it all the way until the end either way. First one is going to be Evan Ingram going over to the Jaguars, getting over there with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. If we remember Doug Peterson, with the Eagles, that's when they started all these 2 tight end sets and, really going after the tight end. It was a point of emphasis, on their squad. Second is going to be Austin Hooper. They pretty much do, they don't have, a lot of the guys that they had there before. He's really the only one there, in the tight end spot. I know they got that guy Pruitt, and a couple of the other guys who should be like 4-string tight ends, on other teams, but they never really replaced Jonnu Smith. So I feel like Austin Hooper is actually the legit replacement for Jonnu Smith. And I feel like he could flirt with double-digit touchdowns because they really aren't going to have like a lot of red zone threats outside of Derrick Henry. And, they're not going to give it to him every single time, they get on the goal line. And the last one is going to be Cameron Brate. I know that they signed someone, Kyle Rudolph or something like that. I'm not too worried about that. Brate's just going to be one of those guys who should be solid enough, 3 to 5 receptions, a game, maybe a couple red zone targets, here or there.
I like Brate. OJ Howard is a Buffalo Bill. He's no longer on Tampa Bay. And as we know, Gronk retired. He might be back, but who knows with that guy? We can't count on it. But I think Brady likes Brate. Brady likes the program. That's a great idea. I also like Tyler Higbee of the Los Angeles Rams. I know he had some 0 games, like 1 catch and 5 yards, but he also had some huge games too. He had 1 game where he had more than 1 touchdown. So again, those are our sleepers. Any tight ends you're trying to stay away from?
TJ Hawkinson. I'm really not buying into the hype of TJ Hawkinson. He's had a couple good games, and he did have, the one season where he had like 8 touchdowns or 9 touchdowns, with Matthew Stafford. But Jared Goff has never really been a guy who throws to the tight end a lot. He gets hurt a lot. That's another thing. I feel like I don't want to really be banking on the Detroit Lions, too much at all. And yeah, I don't want a guy like TJ Hawkinson because he's so good that you don't want to replace him if he does bad because you have to draft him, kind of high. He's usually going as like the 6th or 7th.
6 or 7 is like 4 or 5 in some of these leagues. He's way overrated. You're 100% right. There's a bunch of guys I'd rather have before him. And like you said, Goff is not, he doesn't check down to him ever. He'll change the play. If it's a play for him, he'll change it. For some reason, he hates throwing to him. And there's like a bunch of all the tight ends we mentioned, I'd rather have them except for him. So,
what do you think about Antonio's question? He said, what do you think of Hurst as a sleeper?
Again, he's a guy you take in the last round. He'll catch the ball, but he's not going to have any big games. What's your opinion?
Well, he's going to Cincinnati now.
Yeah,
that's gonna be something different. I know that Burrow hasn't really been thrown to the tight end too often. He is one of those last round, guys. But if I'm putting an extra guy into those 3 that I had, he'd be a guy that I'd throw in there. If I'm punting tight end all the way, kicking it down the street, kicking the can, down the street as far as I can, he might be one of those guys I try.
I kind of know Cincinnati's playbook, especially with Burrow, and they probably throw the tight end maybe 3 or 4 times a game.
Yeah.
And last year's tight end, I can't pronounce his name, but he had some huge games. He had some big touchdown games, but he's no longer there. He signed, I believe, with the Jets. But now with Hurst, he'll get the ball. But again, Higgins, Chase, Boyd, Mixon, these guys are going to score touchdowns. I don't see Hurst in that mix. So that's our answer for him. Another guy I like is, that no one's drafting because he's on the PUP list, is the tight end for Green Bay. His name escapes me, but you probably know it. What's his name?
Robert Tonyan.
Mr. Robert Tonyan. He's on the PUP list. No one's talking about him. Rodgers loves him. And I think he's another great sleeper that I like also. I've been drafting in a lot of leagues just as a second string tight end, not to start. But remember, like, there was a streak where he had like 6 or 7 touchdowns in a row in games. I mean, there was a huge streak going on. And even you were like looking on the waiver wire list, seeing if he's available. And you're like, I know you were. And he's somebody that Rodgers loves. So might as well draft him and see what happens. I know he's supposedly in practice, he's like running up and down the sidelines. So he's not that hurt. So I'm excited about him too. I think he'll have a pretty good year if he's healthy. Let's talk something that you implementing in your fantasy leagues. Instead of starting defenses, you're starting individual players, about 3 of them, let's say, that you start. And the reason you're doing this is just to get away of the old format that the old men are playing. You rather have an individual that stats are based on touchdowns, not that many, but tackles, interceptions, even like sacks. I mean, all those are stats when it comes to defensive players. And I want to hear your opinion and who you were drafting. And is it better to take a linebacker, defensive end, safety, quarterback? What positions do you look at? What's the best points when it comes to defense? You're the expert on this. I dab in it. I'm going full steam in it this season, but I've done leagues with defensive players. I've always been a linebacker guy. I played linebacker in high school, and I always love linebackers because they can get the interception. They get a lot of tackles, and there you go. But I mean, I'm curious. I want to hear your top 10. I can't wait for this. And I also want to hear your opinion, like what position you look at the most when it comes to defense.
Yeah, well, first off, I just got to say, it's not just the old men who have been playing since like the 90s or whatever. I mean, IDP's been around.
80s right here, 80s.
Yeah, I mean, even when the original league was created by like the front office of the Raiders, they did have they did have some defensive players in there, but it's just like along the way the team defense concept to make things a little easier for the casual fan came along, and everyone kind of went behind that. But I've been playing since 2006, and the first league I played in was an IDP league, so I've just never played. I've never played any other way until recently, with the team defense stuff. But yeah, like Antonio said, it's definitely the linebackers because they're going to be coming out with probably the most tackles, on the team. They can make the big plays, like you said, like with the sacks and interceptions. And the guys who I have at 1 and 2 are going to be Roquan Smith and Jordan Brooks. So both middle linebackers, both the guys who, should be putting over, triple-digit solo tackles. And there's really not a lot of guys who can get triple-digit solo tackles outside of the middle linebackers. I mean, over 100 total tackles, yes, but those are the guys who I'm just all about. But then,
okay,
they're good.
So I always thought like T.J. Watt would be like, because he's all pro and everybody loves him and he gets a lot of time. So he's not, for fantasy, he's not your number 1 or number 2 guy, obviously. So even though
it depends, because if you're playing on Sleeper, he could be my number 1 guy.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just assuming that everyone listening may not be playing on Sleeper. But on Sleeper, he has linebacker and defensive line eligibility. On a lot of these other platforms, he's just a linebacker and that's it. But on Sleeper, he's like a cheat code. He's like having a running back and being able to put him into your tight end slot.
Love it. Like Deebo with running back and wide receiver. So who's your number 3?
TJ Watt, and then I have Micah Parsons at number 4. Now, if we're playing on Sleeper, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, they could be a little bit higher because both of them fall in the dual eligibility category where you can put both of them in at defensive line, and they're just so much better than anybody who we'd have after that. It's just not even close.
So Parsons, I fell in love with him watching that show on HBO, Hard Knocks, and his mom goes to every game. I love her too. I mean, he's a Penn State linebacker. This guy is not good. He's great, and he was great as a rookie. And I didn't know if it was going to like he'll be such a big star so quickly, but he really is. And he's somebody I agree with you. I mean, he's somebody I would take in the top 4. I mean, he's that good. I mean, he's just going to get better, as we all know, and he'll get more tackles. He'll be more involved. And let's say, his teammate Diggs, who had all those interceptions. Are you looking at that too, at interceptions too, or do you stay away from guys that get a lot of interceptions but don't really get tackles? What's your theory on that?
I stay away from the guys that get a lot of interceptions. I mean, Diggs was kind of like the exception last year because he had so many interceptions, but usually guys are not getting 10 interceptions. Like maybe there's 1 or 2 guys who get over 8 interceptions in a season, but that's not a stat that you could chase. It's just really not.
Okay, so 5 and 6, go.
I'm going CJ Mosley and I'm going Devondre Campbell. So CJ Mosley, a lot of people forgot about him because he gets hurt in 2019. He opts out in 2020 for COVID, which was a smart move, let his ACL tear, heal for 1 more year, and then just comes back on, like totally destroyed it last year, like over 100. I believe it was over 100 solo tackles and just the scheme that they run for the Jets. And he's just like, he's the quarterback of that defense and he's not going anywhere.
And let me just remind if your defense plays like on the Jets, like you just mentioned, that's a good thing because your defense is out there a lot more than your offense. Like on Jacksonville, the Jets, the Giants, all these bad teams, your defense is out there a lot. Your offense isn't holding the ball that much, and that's what you want. Is you want your defense to be out there as much as possible so you get points, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the more time you're on the field, the more shots you have at getting tackles. I mean, that's really the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why you're not drafting many, like, let's say, Kansas City Chiefs or Bengals or Rams even. You're not drafting that many because it's ball control, and they hold the ball for a long time when they're driving down the field. And those are the teams you don't want to get players on. So who's your 7 and 8?
So I got Darius Leonard at number 7 and then Foy Olakun at number 8. Now, if Darius Leonard was, 100% good health-wise, he'd probably be a little bit higher than what I have him right now. He did take a little bit of a hit when DeForest Buckner went over there. Now he's not like, the best guy in the front 7, all the time. DeForest Buckner, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with. So him being as good as he is took a little bit away from Darius Leonard. Foy Olakun, if he was still on the Atlanta Falcons, I might have him like in the top 2. He was so good last year. He was the number 2 linebacker last year in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. And it's because just like you said about the Jets, it was that exact same way with the Falcons last year. They're always on the field, and he was just a tackling machine. So he's with Jacksonville now, so he can still use the same logic, with a bottom 15 offense, let's just say.
So when you're drafting a defensive player, you look at the team they play on, obviously, and if they have a high octane offense, you kind of stay away from it, I imagine. Because
no, not necessarily, because Micah Parsons, I guess that's a high octane, offense. Green Bay with Devondre Campbell. Darius Leonard, that may not be the highest octane, but really great. And then my number 9 is Bobby Wagner. And
where's Bobby playing this year? He older linebacker, love him in Seattle. Where's he playing now?
Rams.
That's right. During last season, he went to the Rams. You're right.
Yeah, well, it was this offseason he went to the Rams.
Offseason. That's a big sign for LA, obviously. He'll be the team leader, I'm sure, in tackles. Won't be in sacks though.
Right. But he's not a big sack guy anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, so he'll have 100 tackles. That defense will make him be the guy that makes the tackles. It makes sense. The Rams, God, all they do is get better and better every year, and it's unbelievable. Allen Robinson, now they have Wagner. I forgot about Wagner, and they have one of the best DBs in the league too. So they're stacked. Who's your number 10?
I got Eric Kendricks at number 10. Assuming he doesn't move from Minnesota. If he moves from Minnesota, then I'm going to end up having to move him probably outside of the top 12. But whenever he's healthy, he's just like a top 10 guy. And last year, he was either 10 or 11. He was just right like inside it. And I think he still missed 1 or 2 games. Year before that, he was like the number 5 linebacker in like week 12 or whatever before he got hurt and missed like the rest of the season or whatever it was. But yeah, he's a beast, and they use him the right way in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, he had games 10, 11, 12 tackles a game, and those are the guys you want because usually in these leagues, a tackle is 1 point, a sack is usually 1 or 2 points, I imagine. It just depends how you do it, and interceptions. Some leagues I know go all the way to 5, but if you score a touchdown on defense, it's 6, so it's a good thing. So when you're drafting your defense, do you kind of mix it up with linebackers, defensive backs, or do you just take the best player available?
It's best player available. I mean, the position scarcity at defensive line is kind of real. There's really just like a couple guys at the top who are like really worth paying up for. Outside of that, I mean, I just know I can get value at the IDP spots, even if I wait. And then DBs, I mean, there's so many of them, you really don't have to jump for really any of the top ones. So linebacker, I feel like these top 12, top 15 guys, like those are the guys who really give you an advantage.
They really do. And do you draft a lot of rookies on defense sometimes, or you stay away?
Not in redraft leagues. And I mean, those guys, I'll just wait and see if if we get them off the waiver wire, great. But you never really know how these rookies are going to do.
Unless you're Parsons of Dallas, and
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was good every single game, but yeah, he definitely paid back on whatever draft capital he was
unbelievable.
Okay,
so again, I'm excited to do a lot of leagues with defensive players. Get rid of the team defense. That's for old men. Old men. Go to the new school. So next week I want to talk about this. Tell me if you like these subjects. I want to talk about handcuffs, not handcuffs that cops do, but handcuffs when it comes to running backs. And why is it a positive thing to get handcuffs in the draft, and why is it could be negative? But I'm more of a positive guy. My first handcuff, I'll tell you what it was. Walter Payton, Otis Anderson. That's how old I am. Walter, I was actually in like high school and I was doing this, but Walter Payton, I got his handcuff of Otis Anderson because Payton went down, and I had Otis Anderson a huge year. It was great. And then, I had like the Bronco days with Terrell Davis. I got his handcuffs. I mean, it's important that you get these handcuffs, and we'll talk about it next week because I think it's a subject people don't want to talk about because you're talking about your best running back going down, and people will be in denial. He's not getting hurt. I don't need a handcuff. Yeah, you do. And this is why. And this is why the most famous one for me was the running back for Pittsburgh. What's his name? Who went? He's a boxer now, and
Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell, who's the boxer now. He went down. D'Angelo Williams. I don't know if you remember him. He was the backup. It was like in his twilight of his career. I mean, his career was like over 32 years old. No one drafted him, barely. Bell went down. Guess what Ross the Boss did? I took him like every league. I had him. And he had huge years, huge games that year. Unbelievable. And it won my league. So it's important to get a handcuff. We'll talk about it. Who you should draft as a handcuff, who you should stay away. That's what we'll talk about next week because I feel that's a subject that can win your league. And we're here to make you a destroyer. I want you to destroy your league, not win your league, destroy your league. And I think the handcuff subject we'll talk about, and we'll also want to talk about super flex leagues and how you should handle the draft and tiers. We'll talk about tiers, quarterback tiers, and how you should work all that together. It's a subject that I know you know very well. And we'll talk about it next week. I'm Ross the Boss. This is the Hustler, and we love talking fantasy football with you.
Peace out.